Welcome to NTR Radio. I'm Tom Enforcer Anubis.
And I'm K-Gods. We should probably mention that VZ will not be, he won't be here for this thing.
Yeah.
It's nothing personal. He just has no interest in it.
Yeah, he's not, which is fair. So normally
absolutely.
It's a three-man show, but right now it's a two-man show.
So if you're curious, if you're a normal listener and wondering where he's at, there's your answer. And if you're new, he's usually a part of this.
Yeah.
So, but basically, we're having what a sequel to something we've already done.
Yeah. So it's been a while since Gamergate dropped.
Oh yeah, you said 7 months and some change.
7 months and change from at least from as far as I understand it.
Right, September. I can't remember the exact day where it kind of went viral.
It was August. It was like mid to late August when it actually for real started.
Okay. Why am I thinking? Oh, I'm thinking of that's when we actually did the episode.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, basically, a lot has happened. Like way too much for us to go over everything. It's just simply not feasible. There's too much. I mean, put it this way: there are people out there that actually chronicle it on a day-to-day or a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And we're not them. So, I guess we should kind of go right into the more recent stuff.
Yeah. So just yesterday, this all went down.
Yeah.
It was a convention out in Calgary. Forget, it was like the Calgary Comics Expo, was it?
Something like that, I think. And you've probably seen it on the hashtag Calgary Expo.
Yeah. That and Expo Equality.
I actually didn't see that until later.
Yeah, that didn't come until later.
Right. Okay. For those who are geographically challenged, it's Canadian.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was this con, this basically, and there was a booth there, run by honey badgers.
Yep.
And okay, I'm having kind of a brain fart. So what were they originally doing there?
Well, they're a prominent men's rights organization.
Okay, that makes sense then. Okay, and one of the things they were doing was selling merchandise that had the were they just like posters and things like that?
Yeah, it was like posters, stuff like that. And they had a Vivian James cosplayer there as well. Okay,
and interestingly enough, they were basically plastered with anti-censorship slogans and whatnot.
Yeah,
and someone got wind of this. I don't know if they were just kind of trolling the dealer room, and then afterwards, basically got together with some of their clique or whatever, and like, hey, holy crap, they're within our ranks.
Well, I mean, it's that, and there was one of the panels that went on there. One of their members was involved in a discussion with back and forth with the panelists, which was actually remarkably civil and remarkably it was very civil in between the two. It wasn't really hostile at all, but the thing is they were kicked out for harassment.
Is there all right, is there basically a recording of it?
Yeah, it's out there.
Right, so
you can find it on the Honey Badger Radio YouTube.
Okay, so I honestly have not checked it out yet, simply because I didn't have the time yet. But have you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna take your word for it that it's basically pretty non-inflammatory.
Yeah, it was very civil and cut and dried.
Okay.
There wasn't any arguments. There weren't really any voices raised even.
Okay, well, that's actually pretty uncommon for those type of things. From just from personal experience.
Yeah, it's really surprising to listen to.
But anyway, do you know who originally instigated that? I mean, the witch hunt, as it were?
No.
Okay. Well, someone did, obviously.
Naturally.
They obviously found their little... They got together with their little clique and was like, oh, hey, check this out. They're selling merchandise related to Gamergate. And, you know, I don't know if that triggers them or they just got really, really salty about it. Like, holy crap, you know, people are trying to get money in exchange for goods and services, as you jokingly like to say.
It's like people are trying to use the convention space to promote something that they don't like.
Right. And the hyperbole that came out is just outright ridiculous. They're comparing them to, like, the KKK,
Yeah,
or if they were minorities or something like that, black Confederate soldiers, and just this really bizarre kind of this really bizarre kind of not allegory, but analogies, really.
Well, it's whatever they can reach to. It's whatever they can reach to that's very obviously, you know, evil. And, like...
It just really strikes me as bizarre that you could compare someone selling a thing about anti-censorship to, like, lynch mobs and shit.
I mean, it's bizarre to us, but, I mean, this is the daily to people like this. And to me, it's like, if these people, like, really knew what these people are known, like the KKK and whatnot, if these people had any real experience with that, I don't think they'd make these kinds of comparisons, because it's just not.
Yeah, or in some cases, I think they just say it because they know it's just a really inflammatory statement.
Yeah, it's this is bad, so I'm gonna compare this to other people that I know, that other people that I don't like.
Right. Okay. Was it the Mary Sue that originally started this?
Yeah.
I had to think about it for a second because they wrote an article, like, kind of a holy shit, you know, some booth here is actually selling this stuff. And I honestly thought, wait a minute, how is this a reputable source?
Yeah.
And I saw it being cited by a bunch of places. And it's really peculiar that it was the first place, at least that I know, to actually make this an actual deal.
Yeah. And then, like, they were talking about how they were trying to infiltrate,
like they're Soviet spies or something.
You want to talk about fake geek girls? You want to talk about the questioning of women in fandom? Let's talk about the Mary Sue and how their assumption is that these women and men, there were men at the booth too,
right?
These people who were there to sell Gamergate stuff were okay. They're here to infiltrate. They're not actual fans. They're here to huck Gamergate propaganda, which wasn't the case, which is a lie, but that's the narrative.
Right. Okay. And there's a bunch of interesting things that kind of popped up. I don't know about you, but I have gotten blocked by a bunch of people over this.
I wouldn't really know. I don't make any efforts to contact these people. Like, I don't even look at their Twitter stuff, but I don't really care whether I'm blocked or not.
Well, actually, I haven't actually engaged with anybody regarding this. It's just that when I would see, like, a conversation, I would click on their profile and it would say you've been blocked, and it's got to be the auto blocker.
Oh yeah.
And I have never even talked to this person or anybody they know. So it's just really strange to me that I'm on this list. It's got to be because of people I follow.
Oh, absolutely. It's guilt by association.
You know, you know such and such, therefore...
It's not even it's you give the time of day to such and such, therefore you're a person that I'm just not going to be on board with whatsoever.
I mean, on some level, I'm kind of fine with that because it leaves me less people to have to deal with.
Yeah, these people weren't people I wanted to engage with in the first place. So, hey, good job, Twitter, for allowing them to remove me from their line of contact at any point in time.
The only thing I don't like about it is that with a number of people that are banning you via this mechanism, it's probably much easier for you to actually be banned from the site.
Yeah, which is a problem.
From the the client, the program,
which is a problem.
Yeah, exactly. That just strikes me as really, I don't want to say intellectually dishonest so much as childish.
Childish is a word.
Well, of course it's a word. But it's really strange to come across some of the things being said about this, like, how could these people be allowed to be on the premises?
That angers me so much. Here's a group of people who are talking about how women are discouraged from participating in fandom, how women are they're pushed out of fandom, and here comes a group of men and women who have this thing that they've built and who come in here and want to share their stuff with the fandom, and they get kicked out ostensibly because their thoughts aren't in line with the prevailing ideology.
They don't know how to women.
They don't. They're bad at falling into line. It's not we want more women in fandom. It's we want more women who think like us in fandom. And you know what? Take it or leave it. People are individuals, and they're going to make their own decisions as to how they engage with fandom and what they think about it.
I've seen some pretty bizarre insults that have come out of this, such as basically what I said, you don't know how to woman right, or, you know, you're ashamed of vaginas, and just like weird shit like that you just kind of have to scratch your head. So one of the things that got kind of interesting about this in the aftermath of it is there's been a couple of prominent people that have commented on it, such as what I can't think of the guy's name, Chris something. It's not you.
Yeah.
Clearly. But works for their, what were they, case manager or something like that?
Don't know.
Anyway, they made a comment. They were the ones who actually made the KKK comment.
Wow.
And basically got grilled over by a bunch of people, and then came back and said they were sorry, which came across as a big, sorry. Yeah, as a the people. It equates to the people above me have actually yelled at me, and I have to do the I'm sorry thing, or they're going to continue to yell at me or let me go.
I had to give a Bob Chipman apology.
Oh, holy shit. Film, Robert. You know, for those who don't know, that's an interesting thing that happened as well.
Yeah, Movie Bob's on his own now.
Right. So another 100 questionably edited YouTube videos where he stars as all the characters.
You know, I almost can't knock on him for that. Because it's like
it reminds me of,
at least he stuck with it for 100 episodes. It was a dumb series, and made a lot of dumb points with it, but at least he stuck with it for a couple episodes.
Well, I was actually kind of more referring to the basically referring to how he has arguments with himself.
Yeah.
And you know, basically
he
yells
presents arguments he prevents arguments for him to rebut.
Yeah, basically what's known as a straw man in what he does, because it's like, well, wait a minute, you know, he has the trying to play the devil's advocate character and very badly.
Yeah.
All right, so basically, if you haven't ever seen these videos, they basically have. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a problem with my equipment here.
No, I mean, and it's not like he. To be fair, I've agreed with him on a couple occasions, but it's like a stopped clock being right twice a day.
Well, yeah. I mean, excuse me.
My thing is, and he's one of these people that I can't stand, who talks about how Gamergate's about silencing minority voices.
No,
and I'm sitting here like, well, I mean, I'm part of Gamergate, and the white dude isn't.
Yeah. Airports law.
So how do you purport to speak for minority voices? How do you do that?
Because he thinks he knows better.
Like, I mean, for real, how do you come up in here and you're the white guy and you talk and start talking about minority voices being silenced?
Yeah, so if someone such as yourself came up there and was like, oh, well, I have a bit of a problem with what you said. Yeah, but you're not minoritying right.
Yeah, like really? You're not being black correctly?
Yeah, or black enough or something weird like that.
Sorry, massa.
Ow. Yeah, but yeah, this is a guy who dresses up in Mario costumes and stuff and tells other people to grow up. Yeah, there's just something really weird about that.
And like, it wouldn't be dressing up in Mario costumes. This is a problem, but don't also then tell people to grow up when you're doing that.
Yeah, it looks kind of ridiculous. But yeah, he got shit canned from The Escapist,
which ostensibly had nothing to do with Gamergate, and which I'm going to believe for the time being, since that's the only thing that's been said about it.
Yeah, exactly. And these are just a couple of things. There's been an endless amount of documentation that's popped up.
I mean, a whole ton of gaming news outlets either have or have changed their ethics policies.
That is actually true. Some of which you can tell did so reluctantly.
Absolutely. No one likes being called out.
No. I think the most interesting thing about that is sometimes you would notice that they basically retroactively put a disclosure.
Oh, yeah.
On things like, oh, and by the way, these people.
This article we wrote 2 years ago, these people were roommates.
Or having butt sex or whatever. That doesn't mean anything. The point's still valid. But
yep.
I honestly think the reason the media, a large part of the media, has such a hard on for these people is that, well, they do the same thing.
Oh yeah.
You know, in the basic mainstream news, and so I guess they're panicking in the sense that, oh no, they're coming after this thing that actually doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. They're going to come after us next.
Yeah.
Which I can't say they're not wrong. I can't say they're wrong.
Well, I mean if they know that to any extent there is now a clamor towards having actual ethics in media,
Right?
even if it's just video games for now.
Right. I can see how the 24-hour-a-day news cycle sources would be shitting their pants right now.
Yeah.
Like, oh crap, no more can we have just this uncredited bullshit story.
Yeah. We can't just take something out of thin air and make it a really big deal.
Well, they can, but
well, they can. Just they're gonna have eyes on them now.
Right. And there's going to be people doing their own kind of research into something that interests them, and people definitely don't fucking want that.
Yeah.
And people informing themselves is not good in this regard.
Even that way with gaming now. I mean, YouTube's gotten big, and a lot of gaming news outlets are really threatened by that.
Well, to be fair, they probably should be, because
they really should be, because
this model is going to. Oh, sorry.
Right now, they're really messing up, and YouTube's just better right now. People on you, they're passionate about the stuff. They don't patronize their fans. They don't talk down to their fans. They actually know what they're talking about. Make endeavors to gain knowledge about this stuff, to actually know what they're talking about, what they're doing, so they can serve their viewership better.
Right, and in a way, it does kind of make the old blogging style to be almost kind of obsolete.
Kinda.
Simply for the fact that
YouTube is also just plain better in the fact that you have the video there. You can see, like, okay,
gameplay.
This is what the game looks like. This is how the game looks playing.
Right, and you sometimes have somebody actually standing there, or a face shot or something like that. And like you said, with an interactive kind of medium like gaming, you have that so crucial visual component.
Yep. And I mean, as far as YouTubers go, as far as the people go, they're much more inclined to really get down in the trenches with their fans and say, hey, okay, talk to their fans, figure out what they want, because they're the people who are paying you.
Right. Total Biscuit's a kind of a good example in all this.
Total Biscuit's a very good example, and I've been following him since his days on WoW Radio. He's always been pro-consumer. I've always been important to him. He's always been ethical in whatever he does. And he's very, very talented, good at what he does, and he's good at what he does, and he's a good person about it. And even if he might say something a bit inflammatory at times, he sticks to his guns, and I respect that. Right.
Well, there is a certain level of, hey, I'm going to say this and back it up.
Yeah.
And it's hard to find fault with that.
I respect the hell out of that.
One
Even
thing
if I think you're wrong.
One thing that popped up when he got a shitload of just hate mail and all this other stuff.
He's always gotten hate mail.
Yeah, but I'm sure the influx of it was worse after he actually kind of got involved.
Yeah.
Especially with him being on, being such a popular person on Steam. Hello?
Yeah.
This thing. Okay, sorry. It sounded like you cut out. I mean, there was a coordinated effort to get him in trouble and all kinds of crap.
Yep. Unsub TB.
Yeah, there were actually like these weird hashtag campaigns, which were amusingly enough
Zero biscuit.
quickly usurped. And that's something you've seen a lot too during this time period. Is a bunch of little hashtags that popped up that have been kind of to either target somebody specific or just be kind of a uniform condemnation of the whole thing.
Yep.
And they've been almost every single one of them, to my knowledge, have been taken over and pretty much made into, I don't want to say propaganda, but have flipped the role of what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, they've been usurped by Gamergate and brought into the fold, so to speak.
Right. Some of which, okay, yeah, there was the Zero
Biscuit
thing that people just flooded with porn. Which that's kind of that's an interesting technique. That does kind of reek of 4chan behavior.
Certainly, and I'm not surprised by that at all.
No,
I mean, a lot of this came from V being censored.
Right. Which is another thing. Since 4chan had the mods kind of crush down on any of this stuff, there was definitely some backlash from that.
Oh, absolutely.
Recently, we should point out also that Encyclopedia Dramatica had a thing happen.
Yep. That's not going to blow up in anyone's face at all.
Right. It wasn't their Patreon. It was something else. What was their funding source that they got yanked?
Good question. I'm not exactly sure.
It wasn't like GoFundMe or Kickstarter, was it?
No,
but it was something along those lines. Well, anyway, it was basically kind of pulled from them. I don't remember the exact reason, but people were taking credit for it, and that really is just going to be a really bad. It just, I mean, I'm not advocating for them doing anything or anybody, pulling anything, but they will.
Yeah.
Anonymous and a bunch of other people hang out there, so it's going to happen.
Oh yeah.
I believe you basically said it was like hitting a hornet's nest and standing there waving your arms frantically.
Yep.
Daring them to sting you.
Just waiting to be stung.
So, and these are just some things that have happened. I mean, after you wrote your article, I know you had a bunch of stuff going on.
Yeah, back at the tail end of August, I wrote the Gamers Are Not Dead article. In response to Devin Wilson. Yeah, Devin Wilson's article on Gama Sutra.
Which actually...
I'm still mad about that article. That legitimately pissed me off. The way that entire article played out.
Well, yours actually was circling around on Reddit, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, after that came out, it was something that basically... did you put it there, or did someone else, and it just kind of started getting passed around?
Someone else put it there, and it's just started... The thread kind of sort of blew up.
Okay. I don't know if you were monitoring it, or...
I was looking at it, but I wasn't posting. I have this thing about involving myself in discussions about the stuff I create. I don't know.
Okay, so basically just...
I acknowledge that it's dumb.
Right. Okay.
But no, there's a lot of discussion, a lot of both ways about what I was writing, but most of it was relatively positive, especially considering what exactly I was responding to.
Right. I think the most ridiculous aspect of that was someone complaining that you went on a point-by-point.
Yeah.
Look at it.
I went on a point-by-point to, a response to an 18-point long article.
Yeah, how else were you supposed to do it?
Just write
a giant run-on sentence like exactly. They did?
But no, the response to that article was Relatively quite positive.
That's nice. I'm sure you got a ridiculous flood of people basically coming to check it out on your site.
I came home from work that day and checked my site, and at the top of WordPress sites, they have this little graph that shows you hour for hour the last 48 hours traffic, and there was just this huge spike right in the middle of there. I'm like, holy crap, something just happened. And then I found out that I'd made Reddit, and it figured out from there what was going on.
The last 48 hours. Television show for people who don't know.
No, for real, I'm still mad about that Devin Wilson. That's what got me involved in Gamergate. It was that specific article,
and which was just one of about 12 that popped up in the time frame that, when they all dropped in a very coordinated manner.
Yep.
That's not really helping anybody with thoughts of you guys colluding, by the way.
Yeah, there's no way a whole bunch of ostensibly competing news outlets would post the same narrative all within 24 hours.
No. Right. Plus,
you can't tell me that was an accident.
Plus the discovery of Game Journal Pros.
Yeah.
Which people were like, well, that's not weird. People hang out all the time. Yes, they do, but theoretically they're supposed to be competing with each other.
They don't talk about we're going to post this on this day. They don't talk about that when they hang out.
You don't see like ABC, talking with the guys at Fox, about, hey, we got this story and this is how we're going to spin it. It just doesn't really happen like that.
Yeah.
By the way, don't watch ABC or Fox.
TV news is bad.
Yeah. Well, I would have said that even if this wasn't a thing.
But speaking of TV news, we got a lot of TV news appearances from one side, not a lot from the other.
No, and the time where someone did get to speak from our side, it was very heavily regulated.
Yeah.
Which, that tells you really all you need to know. It's like, okay, not only that, but it's like, oh no, I've been pretty much attacked for this and this and that. Please donate now.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we should mention the other day something very interesting happened. A little bit of humor. An account on Twitter. What's his name? Godfrey Elflick, whatever it is.
Not sure.
Basically, they made it onto the BBC, and they're a troll account. They're an SJW troll account. Hang on, I'll bring it up here.
Yeah.
For those who don't know. Okay. Damn it. Okay, here it is. Godfrey Elfwick. Basically, their little bio says demisexual, genderqueer, Muslim atheist. Literal good guy. Itinerant jongler. What the fuck? Pronouns are zir self. Filters life through the lens of minority issues. Okay. Well, and obviously, again, this is it's a joke account, but Poe's Law is in effect here, and they had no idea, absolutely no idea that this wasn't a real. It had nothing to do with gaming. I think it was about Star Wars or something. Yeah, I've never actually seen Star Wars, but the fact that the bad guy was all black and ate watermelons was unbelievably racist, even for the 70s. Alrighty. So that was interesting, and apparently was broadcast on the BBC World. if I'm not mistaken. People were cracking up about that. So anyhow, to kind of get back to the actual Gamergate, something that happened in the interim between the first episode and now is one of the people who were one of the main contributors, the Internet Aristocrat, is basically had a moment of, shall we call it, a disappearance.
Yeah, like he went away and he's back now under a different name.
Right.
Not doing Gamergate stuff anymore.
Not to my knowledge, no. Now it seems to be more just general, like, Tumblrisms and things like that.
Yeah, which is what he was doing before Gamergate.
Right.
To be fair, it's not like much has changed. He just doesn't do the Gamergate stuff anymore.
Not to my knowledge. I mean, I know he's still doing the live streams and stuff, so maybe he talks about it there.
Possibly.
In any case, Sargon of Akkad also basically does some of these things that are at least related to them.
Yeah.
Has there been anything personally that you've run across during this time period?
Personally, not really that much. I mean, and this is something I know. The Gamergate discussions I have, like, with other people, very rare. Like, in real life with other people, very rare.
Okay.
I mean, I've spoken with, like, I talked with the Geeky Panda blog about it, and we both talked about how this mentality that encourages hostility toward people who are enthusiasts about something has to go and is going. People are fighting against it, and it's really like I feel like this is the turning point where a year ago I was talking about how all the negativity and the cynicism is on its way out.
Right.
Here's where it really gets moving, is with Gamergate and this push against, okay, I'm not gonna let you continue calling me a bad person because of the media I like.
It really is kind of a hey, we're going to try to sodomize you into position.
Yeah.
And this is what you would call a crack in the narrative.
Yeah.
And a couple other things that happened were basically the Grand Theft Auto deal.
Mm-hmm.
That was Australia, though. Just Australia, wasn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, the principle is still the same. We're not trying to take your games away, and then
we cheer when it actually occurs.
Yeah, and then a feminist group manages to petition Target Australia to pull GTA 5 from the shelves. And
they did, and their reaction was kind of a, hey, let's pop open the champagne.
Yeah.
And when you see that, it's just absolutely impossible to believe a fucking word they say.
Yep.
It's like, oh, we're not trying to take your games away. Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
In some cases, you're not trying to do it literally, although this one actually kind of is. But the other ones, it seems like you're trying to make it to where you can't make what you want.
Yeah, they're trying to make it so it's making certain games they don't like is discouraged.
Right. And I understand how they're trying to get this to be. I mean, self-censoring is still censoring.
Yeah. No matter how many people want to insist that censorship only comes from governments.
Yeah, sure it does.
Let's be real.
I think they're thinking in the legal sense.
Yes, certainly, but I mean, not everything stands in the legal sense.
No,
we're talking about the idea of making sure people don't see a work of media, or making sure people aren't exposed to a certain line of thought.
The same thing happened to...
In essence, that's censorship. We're making sure that the people at large don't see this because it's harmful to them, or some other crap.
Right. Well, the movie industry actually has shown us what happens when you do this.
Mm-hmm.
You'll note the remarkable amount of drop in rated R movies.
Yep.
I mean, they're still there, but compared to how many there were like in the 80s or something like that, or even the early 90s, a lot less of them. And granted, that's part of it actually is to try to get the PG-13 audience.
Yeah.
Which just to cast your net wider to make more money. I admit to that. But on the other hand, there's also the idea that, we have to dumb stuff down.
Yeah. It's stagnation and mediocrity.
Or we have to sterilize things that already are there. Or like take away its like fangs, if you will. And I know this is somebody who used to watch a lot of those movies that came out in the 80s, whether they be horror, action movies, and so forth. As for me, I openly admit to being on the Blockbot. I don't remember which one. I don't think it's the Atheism Plus one, though. I actually think it's the GG Auto Blocker. Which is weird because I have not talked to anybody that's behind any of that. Not even like tagged in one of their discussions, to my knowledge.
Nah, man, it's who you associate with.
It's like, Internet Aristocrat or so and so, or you follow, a developer we don't like.
Guilt by association.
And that's interesting because I've actually followed some of these well before any of this happened.
Oh yeah. But it's like I don't understand how these people still think they're gonna win.
One of the things that bothers me is the phrase "get on the right side of history." Like every time I hear that, I cringe. I just absolutely cringe. Because that has been the justification for every fucking totalitarian asshole there is.
Yeah.
There has been no leader that I can think of that thinks they're on the wrong side of fucking history. It's like, oh, hey, I'm actively hindering progress. Vote for me.
Yeah. It's the same reason I dislike the term progressive.
In that sense,
what political movement out there, what political affiliation
thinks that we're going backwards?
Does it look like what political affiliation looks at the situation and says, I want to legitimately make everything worse for everybody?
Yeah. Well, I think the way
back to infant mortality. I want to go back to
polio was awesome.
Want to go back to polio. Let's roll on polio. All right. I want to go back to going from place to place and hunter gathering instead of being able to settle down and create societies.
Living in
back to
mud
having
huts.
No time for art, having no time to create media, having no time to do anything but kill things, gather berries, and raise children.
Right.
There's nothing like that.
No.
Why
the
does
equivalent of that is the Flat Earth Society?
Yes. Why does one group of people get to bogart the term progressive when everyone's out for progress? People just have different ideas of how to get there, and different ideas
or even
of
what
progress is.
Yeah,
that's
I was gonna say, or even what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my problem. People, this is progressive. I might not think it's progressive.
Well, now that you say that,
well, it's like there's certain things like if you look at this isn't Gamergate related, but Anime Boston busted up this thing about they had this panel on gender identity in fandom culture, and one of the things that was proposed is that, hey, let's start calling people by the gender they're cosplaying rather than the gender that they actually are. And that sounds really progressive. My thing is I cosplay a combat maid, but I don't want every rando, every stranger I encounter to start treating me like a girl. I'm fine with people I know treating me like a girl, that's fine. But I don't just want every stranger to start treating me differently because I'm wearing a dress. So my thing is let's ask people what they want to be called instead of just assuming. But that's not progressive. That's not progress to some people.
You want to use your proper pronouns.
Hey, if that's your thing, then certainly. But that's not something that I do. And if you assume if some random person comes up and calls me ma'am, I will correct them. But we could avoid all that if we weren't so afraid of actually having a discussion. And if we didn't have this mentality that discussion means that I think what you do is wrong. If I come up to you and say, if I come up to a person who looks male but is cosplaying a female, saying, "Oh," okay, and I legitimately am concerned about whether to refer to this person as a male or a female, I'd ask them, have that conversation. But that's not progressive. That's not progressive, apparently.
Right. Okay. Yeah, like I was saying earlier, the get on the right side of history thing just really rubs me the wrong way on a couple levels. One of which I already explained, that basically, like, well, who thinks they're on the wrong side of fucking history?
Yes, yeah, no, I'm legitimately on the side of history that will be forgotten.
Yeah, and I'm cool with that, by the way. I mean, who actually thinks that? All right. Yeah, I honestly know what they're trying to say when they say that. They think that their viewpoint is so self-evident.
Oh yeah, it's get with us or you're just wrong.
Yeah, that's remarkably cultish to me, personally.
Yep, and it's like you can't question them. You can't dissent against them. You can't even have a conversation with them.
No, they're like Scientologists in that regard.
Because it's just like, oh, you're questioning what I do or what I believe in, so you must be the enemy, and I'm not going to engage with you anymore based on that. And that's not a way to live your life, quite honestly.
I mean, you can, but
certainly. But I mean, it's like that New York Times article on the safe spaces. Right. I was at work and I was reading the New York Times and I read that article, and I was reading the part about describing the safe space with bubbles and Play-Doh and coloring books.
I'm sure you probably laughed.
No, I didn't laugh.
Ouch.
That wasn't funny. That I looked at that like, they're turning these people into children. They're treating these people like 5-year-olds.
Infantilizing people
because they don't like what a speaker is saying. That's sick.
You got to play the Barney video, and
yeah, that's the way you're gonna treat these grown adults.
The kittens running through the field,
and I mean, I guess that's the way they want to be treated. But I mean, I don't know about anyone else, but that's no way to live my life.
It really comes across
I
as
can't fathom that.
really comes across as holy crap. Someone disagrees with the bottom line we're trying to put across, so we need to sedate them.
Yeah,
we need to sedate the person because they've come into contact with like foreign virus or something.
so you gotta quarantine them because it's like, I mean, that description just hit it right there for me because it's like they're creating a generation of people who aren't gonna know how to engage with ideas that are contrary to their own. And when those people get out in the real world and start understanding that nobody cares, nobody's gonna care that you're uncomfortable by someone's opinions. That's gonna be, they better adapt quick.
I mean, I haven't seen most of the type of thing I've run across has actually been online. I'll just openly admit to that. I mean, I've come across a little bit of this stuff in IRL, as it were. But the reality is most of it I've run across online.
Yeah, I don't encounter the Play-Doh bubbles and coloring books people in real life.
No.
Or I haven't.
Not yet. I'm sure I will, but not yet.
I certainly hope I don't, but I fear that at some point I'll encounter one of these, and it's just going to be such an alien encounter to me.
I don't know. I just have this visual of them being like, almost like in a rubber room.
Like, it's, yeah, one of those hamster balls.
Like, one of those, I'm going to put you inside of a sphere so you can't hurt yourself.
Because I grew up my life seeking out knowledge and seeking out people who don't agree with me on stuff and seeking out alternative perspectives. Because I know my own perspective. I'm very familiar with how I think. Now I want to branch out and see, okay, I know what my deal is. Let's look at how other people's deals are and see if I can gain something from that. See if I can gain some knowledge or some perspective from that. And it's very alien to me that people don't do that. It's weird to me.
I know what you're saying because I think what I'm getting from what you're saying is that you think it's odd that people have no desire to find out why someone else thinks the way they do.
Exactly. When I encounter someone whose viewpoint is radically different from my own, my question is why.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that, oh, their demographic is different or this and that, but if it's not, then it's even more curious to me.
Exactly. And, even if their demographic is different, I want to know how they came up, like what their environment was, because that plays into it too.
Oh, absolutely.
All these different factors that play into how someone's worldview gets developed, and as a result, it's remarkably interesting to me to find out and understand what makes these people tick.
Right. I've always kind of had the feeling that you've had kind of an interest in psychology
to a certain extent.
And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean as an, oh, I'm going to go in that field, but kind of basically how a lot of people watch documentaries on, like, I don't know, serial killers or like Timothy McVeigh or something like that.
Exactly. It's interesting knowing how people ended up thinking the way they think.
Right.
And it's alien to me that we have this entire group of people whose endeavor is not to figure out people, not to look at people and say, okay, that this is my perspective, what's your perspective? It's, this is my perspective, accept it. Or this is my perspective, and it had better be your perspective. Otherwise, you're a bad person.
Right. Which, of course, nobody likes to think of themselves as a bad person. I mean,
No.
Even fucked up people that actually are, by pretty much any definition, they don't probably think of themselves in that fashion.
No.
I mean, I seriously doubt Jeffrey Dahmer or somebody was just sitting around one day and just like, I'm a bad person. Yeah. So, go ahead.
Yeah, but that's my deal. I mean, it's just weird. This entire social justice thing, this entire the whole radical feminism thing, the whole race thing, it really bothers me. All this stuff about the calling Gamergate all sorts of nasty things because they disagree. All of that really, it's alien to me. It's something that I can't fathom why anyone would do that. And I'd like to be able to figure out what these people's perspective is and how they came up and where they're coming from with this, but they won't talk to anyone because they're so deeply rooted in their own perspective and their own what they do.
Right.
So it's not like I can even look at it and say, oh, okay, this is where they're coming from. I can't, because they won't engage with anyone other than people who are inside their own clique.
Also known as an echo chamber.
Yep.
Someone once
cyber balkanization.
That's kind of an interesting way to phrase that.
Yeah, but it's all of these different subgroups are now in just gathering around in their own little cocoons out in cyberspace, and it's like, well, I'd like to engage with these people, but if I try to engage, they're going to be nasty to me. So why?
Yeah, I've never had a civil conversation with any of these people ever. There's never been a okay, agree to disagree type of thing. Yeah. It's always you're a shitlord,
exactly,
or something like that. Which I just snicker because it's like I'm so hurt. You called me. Let's just say some type of thing that's supposed to be an epithet or something.
Yeah, he called me a shitlord or
a piss baby or man child or something. Yeah, and that goes. That's the other thing. You've probably come across this too. There's an alarming amount of when you see actual pictures of these people. There is an alarming amount of full bearded guys.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. Full disclosure, I've never gotten fashion, so I don't really understand any of that.
I mean, I'm just saying
how I look, but I mean,
no. I'm not picking on like that as a look because I wear a goatee, but but what it's just one of those weird kind of signifiers, like the black rimmed glasses, the real thick black rimmed glasses, which is also something you see a lot.
Yeah.
They just seem to be like these fashion indicators of sorts.
To a certain extent, you can call it a uniform.
Right. Which I'm not even saying the uniforms are bad.
No, of course not. But I mean, here, it's the uniformity of the ideology. It's think how I think and do what I do, or you're gonna get shit from all of us. This even happened with Brianna Wu. Remember when she had coffee with the dude who was not anti-Gamergate, and all the anti-Gamergate people jumped on her for it.
Oh yeah, that was one of those wait, huh? moments.
Like, these people will, at the drop of a hat, will eat their own if they do something that's not in line with the ideology.
Right. You better be lockstep.
Yep.
If you're not, they will swarm you.
They will come at you.
Like they're basically like Africanized bees. Just listen. And it's weird because it doesn't have to be something big.
No, it could be the minorest thing, but if you do something that's not in line, you're gonna get it.
Even if you apologize for it.
Even if you apologize for it. In fact, if you apologize for it, they will pick apart your apology for everything that you said wrong in there.
Oh yeah. And part of that is why I've been phrasing the whole group is a cultural Ouroboros.
Yeah.
Because it's, like eating its tail.
Exactly. They take their own elements and just engulf themselves, and eventually, if it keeps on, they're gonna not have any more people left. It's gonna be 2 people left, and they're both gonna excommunicate each other. Because at the end of the day, groups don't exist. People are individuals, and they'll do individual things that may or may not be in line with your group ideology. Because these people identify so much as groups, the set of all women, the set of all minorities, all that. If a woman does something that doesn't apply to their perception of the set of all women, then she gets the boot.
Yeah, it's like an outlier in that regard. Yep. Like holy crap, this does not fit into the circle.
I mean, like the set of all feminists, and look how much shit Christina Hoff Sommers gets because she doesn't fall in line with the rad femme agenda.
And she is by far not the only person that has been on the end of the stick here.
Oh, absolutely.
Another good example, and this kind of goes back to the race thing that we were talking about. Which the weirdest thing about that is you constantly hear there's no such thing as race, but yet then out of their mouth afterwards is die white people or die cis scum or whatever. Die white straight male.
I'd like, there's a lot of us who would like to disregard race.
Yeah, not only that, but there's
constantly reminded about it by people whose agenda is part of whom's agenda is that they have to bring up race all the time.
Thank you, Starbucks.
That
was the stupidest campaign.
So dumb. How could anyone think that was a good idea?
It was just really head scratching. It's like, say, I'm gonna make you an espresso, but I need to sit you down and talk about race.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, why? Why is the shrimpy white guy behind the thing going to talk to me about race?
So just get me my damn coffee. I don't need you to talk to me about race. I don't need anyone to talk to me about race. I don't need when I'm ready to talk about race. I have people who I can talk about race with in my life. I can probably count them on one hand. There are not that many people out there who I'm interested in having a conversation about race about, because I know it's not going to really be a conversation. It's either going to be me and that person agreeing with each other, or me or that person just shutting me out because I disagree with them. And I know that there are a handful of people with whom I can say, sit down and say, hey, okay, let's talk about this, and it'll actually be a discussion. But for the most part, I can't expect that from people. So no. I'm certainly not gonna expect the person whose only job at Starbucks is, hey, make coffee, to have an in-depth conversation with me about race.
Right.
People came up rolled up on me at my job and said, hey, let's talk about race. No, thank you. I'm all set.
I'm kind of busy right now.
Exactly. It's not part of my job.
Well, not only that, but there's this really bizarre way of pretty much using the word as species as well, as basically thinking they're the same thing.
Yeah, they're not.
That's kind of head scratching to me. I've always found the term the human race to be kind of strange, to be honest with you. Because
I've been so used to it being like that it's sort of I've gotten used to it, even though I know it's wrong.
Well, yeah, it's like the term sunset. That's not really what's occurring.
Happening.
But we use it because it's just an easier thing to say. Yeah, I understand what you're getting at, but it still is like, well, actually, it's not like it's not like we're a dog, you know?
Yeah.
To where there's like the Yorkshire Terrier and the German Shepherd and the Rottweiler or something like that. No, it's closer to dogs, cats, lizards. You know.
Yeah. But I mean, this whole thing and especially when it comes to video games, especially when it comes to I come home from work at night and want to play some Virtual On, or I get up on my day off and want to play 8 hours of X3 Terran Conflict. I don't want that to turn into a conversation about race or a conversation about gender. I'm not interested in
that. I don't think most people are.
And for real. And that's cool for the people who are interested in that. They can go and have that conversation, but I don't want it to start impinging upon what I'm doing. I don't want it to start inserting itself into the video games that I play.
Right. I mean, I don't think anybody wants to play like the equivalent to Lethal Enforcers, and beforehand it has a big diatribe about how guns are bad.
Yeah. So, I mean, at least I don't want to play that. If people want to play that, they can make that game.
Right. But you know that won't happen.
Problem with that. But hey, I mean, the answer is always more art. Let's have more people making games so more people can have the stories they want told. It's nobody's responsibility to create the story you want to hear. Nobody's responsibility. No artist is obliged to create any story for any particular person unless they're paying.
Well, yeah, like a commission.
Unless they're paying like a commission or a Kickstarter or something like that.
Right. And then
even with a Kickstarter, it's like, here's my idea. Are you on board with it? It's not, okay, pay me whatever you want and I'll make something that you want to see.
Right. But to kind of continue on the whole, not trigger warning, but things being kind of inserted. I just don't like the concept of, oh, hey, we need more games that are very poorly put together, point and click, you know, or something that's just aping, I don't know, Super Mario Brothers or.
I mean, hey, if they want to create those games, they can go ahead and flood the market with that and see where that gets them. You know,
but ultimately, it really is. It does come across as propaganda. It really does. Just because it's like music that has a message, but it's really poorly put together, and it's pushing the message at all costs.
Yeah.
But the actual quality of the music itself is bad.
Yeah. When I'm playing a video game, I want to play a video game. I'm not particularly here to...
An interactive PDF?
Yeah, I'm not particularly here to play like an interactive fiction work where the message is more important than the gameplay. I'm here to play a video game.
I mean, in some...
it's that, and they want to impose, like, they want to look at it where if a game contains something, then it's either supporting that or opposing that. It's not just an element of the world. Like, you look at Armored Core, and we're looking at a world where, okay, after this destructive war, the surface is uninhabitable. We're living underground. Corporations have taken over.
So it's
So
basic.
that it's a corporatocracy nuclear disarmament story. Like and none of that has anything to do with what's really going on in the game, and nothing to do with it. Yet you're living under a corporatocracy. That's just an element of the world, and you deal with it like any other element of the world. It doesn't really matter if we replace the corporations and armored core with nations. Nothing would change.
Well, and I got the idea that, like you're saying, that's kind of a service to just what's going on, basically a backdrop. It's like, okay, here is what happened. It doesn't matter whether you like it or not. This is the reality of the situation.
Here's the setting,
and here's what you have to do within it.
Exactly. Here's the setting. You're a mercenary, which is another thing that they're probably going to have a problem with, supportive mercenaries. And you're going forward, and you need to go do missions for these people to make money.
Right. The very concept, basically a contract killing or something like that.
Pretty much. And you do a lot of that.
And to me, that's the really weird.
It doesn't make any moral judgment on that for or against. That's just an element of the world, and that's just something you do in the game.
I can't remember who originally said this, but they said the object of fiction was one of the ideas of fiction is to basically have some type of moral point to it, and I disagree with that.
I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
That to me is just very, very selfish more than anything else.
It's like here's another game, X3 Terran Conflict, where the object is you start out with a small freighter, and your goal is really to do whatever you want, and the game doesn't make any moral judgments on you for or against whatever you do. If you decide to, become a pirate and just raid shipments for salvage, go against the military, destroy stations, do whatever you want. It doesn't make any moral judgments for or against that, but it does punish you in the game for, well, not even punish you. The game reacts to it, and it reacts in a certain way by you going out and just making an honest living, go building up your own space stations, and it reacts to that as well too. And either of these can be positive or negative. It's not making any moral judgments on what you're doing. It's simply reacting as a simulacrum of other people inhabiting this universe with you.
It reminds me, what you're saying, it reminds me of that site Nation States.
Yes.
In the sense that it doesn't really penalize you for what type of government or that you try to use, but it tries to realistically portray it.
Exactly.
Like if you decide to be a rogue state, and it says that basically, hey, you've tried to leech off another place and steal their resources. You don't be surprised when you get your ass kicked.
Yep. And even in games where you do make these quote unquote moral choices, sometimes it doesn't really judge you that way. Look at Ace Combat Zero, where you can choose to, okay, I'm either gonna simply engage enemy targets, engage targets that can shoot back at me, or I'm going to engage all targets, including possible civilian targets, disabled aircraft that are leaving the airspace and whatnot. Or I could just do in between of those and judge how I'm going to do that based on the layout of the battlefield. And you're going to hear different stories as you do that, but it's not really making a moral judgment about you. If you just engage enemy targets, they're going to talk about how you flew with this sense of honor, and that they're going to talk about how they saw that as a weakness, but they still got shot down by you anyway because you're strong. Or if you just completely lay waste to all targets, regardless of whether they're shooting at you or not, they're going to talk about how you're this unstoppable force, this onslaught coming at you. And that's not really making a moral judgment on you based on what you're doing. It's more talking about the style you chose, the style that you fly in based on what you do in the game.
Mm-hmm. Again, I've never played this game, so I'm all just taking this on.
It's a lot of these games where you make choices that would result in right or wrong in real life, but the game is simply reacting to what you're doing as a person would react, as the other inhabitants of the game world would react to it.
Right. Anyhow,
so and that's my huge problem with this whole thing, where we need to have moral judgment in gaming. That I'm not 100% not on board with that, because a lot of the games I play don't have any kind of moral judgment, and a lot of the games that I play I don't want any more kind of moral judgment in them. I mean, even if let's go back to the arcade where gaming started. Where's the moral judgment there? We didn't need it for how many years, and we don't need it in droves now.
The closest thing to moral judgments I can think of in arcade is when the bully beats up the kid for quarters.
Yeah, exactly.
Which sadly actually did happen.
But I mean, speaking of arcades, look at you can. We're talking people talking about how women and minorities are discouraged from entering the gamer space. Look at the fighting game community.
Mm-hmm.
And then tell me that women and minorities are discouraged from entering the gaming space.
And that's the other thing. There are definitely types of games that are kind of unfairly quarantined off in this.
There are a ton of games, and really what I notice about not only the SJWs, but really games media on a whole, as far as stuff that's outside, like I'm talking about stuff like IGN, Kotaku, and all that. Mm-hmm. They focus on the AAA and the indie, and the stuff in the middle gets forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're not going to see them talk real big about Ace Combat. You're not going to see them talk real big about Virtual On or Armored Core.
Right. Well, what I mean is almost more kind of the genres. Like, first-person shooters, of course, is everyone's favorite.
Naturally, because when Modern Warfare 2 released, it was the biggest media release ever.
But there are other type of games too, fighting games. And it's interesting to know because a lot of first-person shooters are actually made here. Yeah. You know, which that's not like a judgmental thing. It's just, you know, these type of games just seem to have a general bigger audience here, which somewhat makes more sense given the accessibility of things like guns and stuff here.
Certainly.
But you know, but that's, I mean, RPGs and stuff usually don't get nearly as much flack, you know, for problematic elements, as it were.
To a certain extent, throughout the past few years, there have been like spikes of JRPGs being in the spotlight for something.
Right, because like the outfit has shows off too much skin or something. Yeah. Which is really fucking weird, because it comes across as really, really puritanical. Like, yeah. Sounds like something you would hear the local crazy pastor saying.
And whenever one thing is, whenever you hear about people complaining about Japanese games, it's always, you can replace Japanese games with JRPGs and it'll be the same thing, because that's all they know.
Well, it is. And fighters kind of go, most of the time the fighters are the same thing, like because it's something they're wearing.
Yep.
I think well, Dead or Alive is a good example.
Dead or Alive is definitely a good example. Soul Calibur is another one.
Yes. There was another one. I'm trying to think of what it was. Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat, definitely.
10 just came out recently.
Yep. There's a lot of controversy surrounding that.
Yeah, but both stuff that is actually genuinely worth talking about, and other stuff that's just really head scratching.
Yeah.
Like people complaining about how gruesome the fatalities are, just crack me up.
Have you played Mortal Kombat?
Do you do understand that's how it got popular, right?
That's Mortal Kombat's thing.
Yeah, the gore. I mean, quite frankly, I find a lot of them, especially in the middle, to be almost comical.
It really is.
I mean, you know, like the first and second one had kind of a dark quality to them, but then you started getting really ridiculous fatalities, like being hammered into the ground.
Yeah.
You know, the earlier ones kind of were a bit more gruesome in the sense that it's like somebody just sliced it off, or, you know, burn you alive or something like that. And they're kind of, it just seems like they're kind of going back toward that direction.
Yeah, which is, it's good for Mortal Kombat. Stick to your guns. Stick to what you're good at.
I'll come clean and say I honestly think they've actually been kind of on a renaissance here lately, because ever since they started with the Deadly Alliance game, when they kind of revamped the franchise, I mean, you had that, then you had Deception, and Armageddon, not so much, but
right.
And then, of course, you had that completely fucking awful versus DC thing. But they kind of went back to their roots with 9, and now this, you know, with the X-ray shots and all that kind of stuff. But I just can't help but find that really ridiculous. It's these games have gotten too violent.
Yeah, it's these games have gotten too, and we saw the whole thing where, like, there were tournaments banning costumes in the new Dead or Alive.
I actually didn't hear about that.
So it was one or more tournaments are starting to ban Dead or Alive costumes in Dead or Alive 5 because they're too revealing or whatever.
I can just see a convention where somebody actually is dressed up that way and not allowed to play a character that is.
I mean,
that would be really funny to me.
It'd be hilarious. I mean, like, Dead or Alive's thing since the very beginning, the thing that saved Dead or Alive and this thing that saved Tecmo and Team Ninja was always the fan service.
Really, the fact that you could actually toggle the jiggle physics has always been a point of contention with people.
It really has, and that's its thing. That's how Dead or Alive survived on the Model 2 system against Virtua Fighter, against Sega's own fighting game franchise.
Right. Well, most fighting games have some kind of angle.
Yeah, and once the genre's been established, you have to have an angle. Otherwise, you're Street Fighter Light or Virtua Fighter Light. Right.
Take Soul Calibur. I mean, the weapons. Yeah, the weapon systems, basically. That at least that's the thing that stood out for me when I played them.
I mean, Dead or Alive has the fan service. Soul Calibur has the weapons.
Mortal Kombat goes for the gore.
Mortal Kombat's got the gore. Marvel vs. Capcom has that's got the tag team system and all that. Tag team system and the big roster.
Right. And
everything has an angle, and if you don't like the angle, don't play the game. If you want something without an angle, Street Fighter for 2D fighters, Virtua Fighter for 3D fighters.
There you go. And as much as you dislike it, there's Tekken.
There's Tekken, which, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't have an angle. At least I don't know what its angle is.
Being bad.
But no, I mean, it's
to be able to do it's for people that don't like or don't know how to do combos but still want to do them.
Yeah, it's
You know, it's like just pick Eddie Gordo and button mash. You can beat the game doing that.
yeah.
I know because I've done that
That's
before.
so dumb. But I mean, even looking at fighting games, what moral judgment can you make about a fighting game?
Yeah, I really don't like the impetus behind this.
It's it's a it's an effort to make everything into some kind of social commentary, and if it's not a social commentary, then it doesn't need to exist.
Which I don't understand how someone can have that mentality and not be bored out of their fucking mind.
I mean, to me, entering a game's world is about entering a world that is unfamiliar to me and is like not the real world where my morality has any leverage.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm playing virtual on, okay, I'm a pilot for some corporation fighting some giant robots in a meaningless war, literally meaningless war, and that's cool to me. That's really cool. I would like to experience that world more. The idea that everything has to be a moral judgment, everything has to be a social commentary about this world, just strikes me as so being so enamored with this world and having no sense of fantasy, having no sense of imagination to be able to look out there and say what are the possibilities, and to look at fiction and say this is a world that I'm not familiar with because I don't live in it, and I want to figure out what's going on in this world and what's different about it, what's the same about it. And it just strikes me that there are people out there who don't have this sense of wonder when they look at a video game world, and they look at it through the lens of that this is bad or good, this is moral or immoral, and it's alien to me. This is another thing that's alien to me, is people with no sense of imagination about looking at a world of fiction and saying, wow.
Okay, that actually brings up a good point. I'll use my father as an example. He is somebody who does not read fiction. Is not interested in it. To me, that's very alien.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is the only types of books he reads are basically like instruction manuals or biographies or something like that, or like the origin of the CIA, that kind of stuff. Which, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of interesting stuff in those fields.
Right.
But that's all he does not acknowledge, like for instance, the world of something like Star Wars.
Right.
Or Lord of the Rings or anything like that's completely fictitious. He sees that as kind of a waste of time, and it's weird to me because I have to wonder if they don't have the same mentality to an extent. Like, if this isn't addressing some kind of issue in the real world, it has no value.
I feel like that is their mentality. I feel like their thing is everything must address some kind of issue towards some nebulous progress, and if it isn't, then it's a waste of time and should not exist.
Right. And by doing this, they basically say, oh, if you're interested in this kind of thing, your priorities are wrong.
Yeah.
Which, wow.
You think differently from me, then you're wrong.
Yeah, wow. I can't even get my head around that kind of mentality.
I once again, I can't fathom looking at someone and just saying, you're wrong. And not before wanting to figure out why they think the way they think.
Well, yeah, that's another thing that strikes me as kind of strange. It is the taste not being subjective thing. Like this is like this has a message in it I don't like, so it is intrinsically wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, okay, I'll come clean here. I enjoy some authors and musicians and stuff that I fucking do not agree with politically or whatever at all. You know, and in some cases even find them to be terrible people.
Oh, certainly.
But that's the thing though. I do not dislike the material or what they're I don't discount their ability or anything.
Right.
Which I mean, some people I understand, and that's fair enough. They're voting with their wallet. I understand.
And I mean, I'm kind of two ways about that myself.
Oh,
like there was a point in time years ago where I was interested in buying Anna Anthropy's game, Analog: A Hate Story. Now I can't reconcile with myself purchasing that game anymore, because I can't look at myself and spend money on something from someone who I know hates my guts.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's easier when they're dead.
Yeah.
I mean,
when they're dead, or I don't know.
Right.
You can go ahead and hate me all you want and create art. If it's good, as long as I don't know you hate me, that's fine. But if I know that you're the kind of person who's going to look at me and say, you're a bad person, I can't look at myself and say, hey, I'm going to spend money on this person's thing. I'm going to reward this person for their perspective.
Essentially, right. Okay, I'll use an example of somebody that's dead, like Richard Wagner, total raving anti-Semite. He is, the progenitor of a Nazi, pretty much. And that's part of the reason they were so fond of him, and they played the music and stuff. It doesn't really say anything to his ability to compose.
No.
And quite frankly, a lot of his things that he's created that he did create are pretty much heard every day in the United States. Whether it be
correction, I just remembered this. It was Christine Love, not Anna Anthropy.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's fine. But okay, an example is like them playing in churches and stuff. Them playing the wedding, Lohengrin.
Yep.
Or in movies or commercials, you constantly hear "Ride of the Valkyries."
Yep.
And again, it has nothing to do with his personal thoughts or beliefs or anything, which where you could argue that they were bad or just awful or whatever. But there are a certain group of people who think that his works should not be allowed to be played because of it or enjoyed purely because he was an asshole.
Yeah, I mean, hey, at the end of the day, art is art. Take it or leave it.
Oh yeah, and that's another thing, that a lot of artists were actually just really messed up people.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, Van Gogh cutting off his ear, and all that kind of infamous stuff. But then there's also some of these people were really, especially artists from antiquity, we tend to overlook the bad things they did.
Yep.
Because some of them were outright murderers, or rapists, or thieves and whatnot. And you're taught that in history class, art history, but it's looked over as, they were a terrible person, but they were good with a paintbrush or or something like that. And I do think it's easier for people to do that when they're dead.
Yeah.
Because you're not funding some kind of like, oh, this money is going to some NAMBLA type organization.
Yeah, exactly.
There's, I don't know. It to me, it's one of those things like, if you want to eat recently there was this thing that came out that certain places, restaurants, I hate to use the word restaurants for some of these places because it's not really accurate, but some of these
I always feel funny referring to McDonald's as a restaurant.
Yes, fast food chains is probably better.
Yeah.
Well, they're actually supporters of various conservative causes.
Yeah.
And some of these were like Waffle House and Domino's and
Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, the most obvious one, right? Or Carl Hardee's or Carl's Jr. And White Castle and so forth. The thing is, though, am I not going to eat at these places?
Yeah, it's like if we were to condemn every single thing based on having any chance of supporting something that we're not on board with, we'd run out of things to purchase really quickly.
Yes, you would, big time, and that goes back to the fact that a small number of people own everything.
Yeah.
Or companies, right? I guess we shouldn't say just people. I'll give you another example. Another thing, H.P. Lovecraft, big fan, raving racist, big time. I mean, come on, he named his cat the N-word. Come on. Now, I love his writing. He's actually one of my absolute favorite authors, but I don't excuse that shit.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I even wrote a paper on that. And it's just really head scratching though, because his influence on the horror genre is just massive.
Oh yeah.
People like Stephen King and stuff, or Dean Koontz, but I mean, they wholesale pretty much took every idea he's ever had.
Yep.
And played with it in some capacity. And video games and horror movies and even anime have taken music and stuff, have taken basically not points, but cues from his works.
Oh yeah.
I mean, what was the name of the? I'm having a complete brain fart again, but there was an anime that was really focused in on that.
There's two I can think of. Well, one I can think of that was really focused in on it.
Mm-hmm.
One that sort of tangentially referred to it.
Right, and then
it was Hayori Naruko-san, and then Fight Ixer 1.
Right, but then there's also like some of the Sayano Uta is very Lovecraftian.
Oh yeah,
big time. Rotsuka Doji also fairly Lovecraftian, but with more tentacle rape.
Yeah, but it's like if we were to condemn every single person, all art based on what the person did or did not agree on, not only would we run out of artists to support real quick, we'd run out of art to build other art off of really fast.
And to be fair, again, Lovecraft is dead.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to be honest, I get when someone says like something like that is problematic. I get that. This person had viewpoints that are considered to be either just wrong-headed or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
that said, I would take issue with specifically the use of the word problematic.
I'm just sick of hearing it.
I think it's a cop-out.
And I'm sick of hearing the word.
Yeah.
About everything,
I feel like this is problematic, you're avoiding specifically talking about what you think about it is problematic. Just saying, it's problematic, and expecting that to be the be-all end-all, when really we could have a dialogue about this, but these people don't want a dialogue.
I'll point out another thing that's really kind of falls into what we're talking about. The show Angel Cop. Yeah. The person who wrote that is clearly has some pretty questionable views, to say the least. For those who don't know, the ending, there's two versions of the ending. The one that was actually made and the way they tried to lessen it as being bad. The way it was originally was basically that, hey, the Jewish people actually do run the world. Basically. Basically a very Nazi-like way of looking at things. Let's just say that. And the thing is by supporting Angel Cop, no doubt money is going to some less than nice people, I'm sure. Yeah. But there's a group out there that think a show like that should not be able to be enjoyed.
Yep.
And that's where I got to really, really draw a line.
That's where I have a problem, because I'm of the mind that the answer is never less art.
I think I'm going to have to just adopt that as an idea, because I've never really had like a term for the way I look at things like this.
Yeah, that's my perspective on it. If you disagree with something a work of art is espousing, or something an artist is saying, the solution, the answer, is to create art counter to that. The solution is absolutely not to destroy that.
No, I don't think so. I mean,
Don't destroy culture. Don't.
Right. Even if it's
what we're condemning ISIS for doing.
Yeah, big time. I was just thinking that, actually, because for those who don't watch the news or read a newspaper, or basically are just living in some kind of bubble and don't pay attention, ISIS is pretty much running across the Middle East, destroying museums and things like that.
Yep.
Some of these things are thousands of years old.
Yep.
Which the historian in me kind of weeps.
It's infuriating.
Like even if the people who made these things were complete assholes, which there's really no way to know that, but
right.
It's just kind of cringe-inducing.
It's still just the destruction of culture, and that's wrong to me.
Right. To me, it's very similar to book burning.
Yes.
The Nazis really did like to do that. Not to be a Godwin's Law thing, but they had this thing they called degenerate art, which they tried to get rid of, either by banning it or destroying it, or both. Now, granted, some of it might have actually been nasty. I don't know. Some of it might have been, like, I don't know, promoting pedophilia or something, you know.
Even if it was,
it shouldn't be destroyed.
It's still culture, and it has a right to exist. No matter how many people don't like it, no matter how big a problem people might have thought it was, it has a right to exist.
There was a thing, although to be honest, it was kind of the problem with it really wasn't what it was so much as how it was achieved. You might have heard of the art piece Piss Christ.
Yes.
Okay. I think a lot of the people complained about that because of the government funding. There was something about that I remember reading. Like, no, I mean, obviously some people were probably annoyed by the actual content. I wouldn't have guessed that.
Certainly.
But at the same time, most of the complaints I heard were actually about the way it was funded. You know, things like that shouldn't be funded by, you know, government institutions and stuff like that.
I mean, hey, well, what were the terms of government funding? Because if the government said, hey, here's a bunch of money, make art, then he was well within his right to do what he wanted.
Oh, yeah. If it was a grant that was basically, hey, use this for whatever artistic endeavor you want.
Yep.
Then, yeah, I suppose you're right. But I don't think that actually was the idea here.
And then if there were restrictions put on that grant, then he would be in violation of the law.
Right. I mean, for
some, would be in breach of contract, and that would be a separate problem. The fact that he made this isn't an issue. It shouldn't be an issue.
No,
it's art. He made it. It's culture. Take it or leave it. But nobody has the right to say it shouldn't exist. And people are talking. People are talking like, oh, it shouldn't exist because it was funded by the government and the government shouldn't fund it. I mean, hey, it's art. Regardless of who funded it, regardless of how it came to be, it's a work of art, and it should be able to be enjoyed by people.
I just get the visual of someone basically going, oh, the government basically funded this gangbang movie. you know, under the pretense of artistic license of some kind, you know. Well, the thing is, well, they kind of are, in a way, unless they're, you know, taking the money out of their own pocket and not getting some kind of advance or loan or whatever. But the thing is, there's been a precedent that actually says you can do that. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of bring it back to Gamergate, I feel like there in the previous months there had been like an effort to focus the media's attention, focus the gaming journalism industry's attention on certain games.
Oh yeah,
certainly in the indie realm, and for indie gaming to become what indie gaming's supposed to be, that has to break.
Okay.
Indie gaming was supposed to bridge the gap between the AAA realm, the stuff in the middle, and the little, like the tiny little games people were making independently. The indie gaming industry was supposed to bridge that gap, and as it stands now, all that gets attention are stuff by people who how to put this,
have a cult of personality.
Yes.
Right. Well, the thing is, and again, I'm not really big into that scene or anything, but one of the things that always occurred to me is the idea that, I mean, there's significantly less resources for people in this department than there are like AAA games, certainly.
Less resources, but at this point, the resources are still substantial. Indie gaming is a big market, bigger than its indie label would suggest.
Okay, well, but the thing is from what I understand, it's like, oh, the next Tetris or something could come out of this.
That's basically the mentality, is that indie gaming is where the real innovation is supposed to happen.
Which theoretically, I can understand why that someone would think that.
Oh, absolutely. And indie gaming was supposed to save us all.
Save us all from commercial dreck.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, save us all from having to play the 300th rendition of Call of Duty.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
But now it's grown into what it is now, and it's like, where was what's supposed to come out that, and really, it still is that way. It still is indie gaming has saved us all, but none of the stuffs gets covered. Nobody's heard of Vegas Strike or friggin' Wise Flight Simulator. Nobody's heard of any of this stuff that's indie, but more niche. Nobody's heard of all these great like open source games that are out there, because they don't get coverage.
No, what gets covered?
If I were to start making games again, I wouldn't get coverage. I sure as hell wouldn't get coverage.
Well, no, probably for reasons that have nothing to do with your game either.
Nothing to do with the game. Hey, this Time Enforcer Newbus guy supports Gamergate. Guess who's not getting coverage on his video game?
And again, this only kind of furthers the point of the collusion thing.
Yep.
The kind of games that are getting covered are from people they know. Just straight up. Like, oh, hey, Gone Home won Game of the Year. Why is that?
Oh, hey, again, this Zoe Quinn girl made a game. I'm gonna say, well, was Indie Game Darling Depression Question, something like that?
I don't know.
Whatever it was.
And again, these types of games are all kind of pushing an idea of some kind.
It's this pushing a particular agenda, pushing a particular socio-political ideology, and there's nothing wrong with that on its head, but that's not the game I want to play. That's not the game everyone wants to play. but these kinds of games get a disproportionate amount of coverage from the games media compared to games that I want to play.
Right. And
compared to the games that maybe you want to play or maybe other people want to play.
Some of the things that actually have happened, there's been a couple of incidents that basically kind of have forced some hands. And what I mean by that is like the Lion's Head Studio thing, or the Pillars of Eternity game, you know.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, the Lion's Head Studio thing, there was the National Cleavage Day or whatever it was, something like that. It was a hashtag, and they made a joke,
posted a picture from, it was a poster from one of their Fable games, the Foaming Jugs. It was a bar, and the homegirl with 2 massive mugs of beer in front of her breasts.
Right, and it was posted within the hashtag.
Yep.
They were immediately pretty much flayed alive.
They were just inundated with complaints.
And they did take it down.
Yep.
They did pretty much cave under pressure and took it down and said they were sorry. But from what I understand, behind the curtains, as it were, there were people that were bitching about that. I don't know how true that was, but I mean, I can believe it.
I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't necessarily want to speculate.
Right. Okay. Again, just something we heard through the grapevine. We heard it through the grapevine. But okay, Pillar of Eternity. That's the other one of the other things. There was a what do you call it? Contributor. Wasn't it about like $500 or something like that?
Yeah, and got to write an epitaph on one of the gravestones.
Right, and they found, once it was discovered, it blew up.
Yep.
Because people found it transphobic or whatever. You know, and the same thing. They were swarmed. And just threatened to boycott it and all this other things.
And they changed it.
And they did. They did change it. Granted, what it was changed to is actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
You know, it was basically a statement. It's basically kind of making fun of the butthurt of the original one.
Yep.
But the point is, they did cave. Well, actually, no. They didn't really cave so much as the person who actually donated it retracted it.
Yeah.
At least that's the official line, anyway. A couple other things like this have happened recently too. So, Senran Kagura, you know. For those who don't know, absolutely look that up. Basically, there's been this overwhelming dislike of this franchise by certain sources. Rather than just not playing the game or not giving it any coverage,
the rational solution.
They not only do they give it coverage, but they probably make people interested in it by doing so. Like, oh, this thing is, you know, it shouldn't exist.
It's sickening.
Yes, don't play it.
Yeah, people are gonna want to figure out why it's vile and sickening.
Right. I mean, I'm sure it has the same effect that games like Night Trap and stuff did when they came out. Like this is filth. You know, this is horrible. Don't play this. And then you got 2 types of people that are like, oh, I'm not supposed to play this. I want to play this.
Play it.
Exactly. Just kind of as a defiant kind of thing. And then you have the other people just that are morbidly curious. Why is this such a big deal?
Exactly.
And, you know, I mean, there were a bunch of games like that. It's weird to me that this feels like history repeating itself.
It really does.
Because when I was a kid, and in the early '90s, there was your Mortal Kombat, your Lethal Enforcers, and Night Trap, and some of these other games, and they were in the news. Like is your kid playing a murder simulator, or something? They didn't say that, but they were kind of
right. Murder Simulator was my era when it was GTA 3.
Right, but the idea is still the same now.
Yep.
Are your children playing something that
Something
rubs us the wrong way
to them, and harmful to them is determined by us?
Right, because they've actually done, wonderfully enough, some actual studies, and I actually mean some real ones.
Some for real studies now.
I believe it was Germany, wasn't it?
Yep.
That it had a 3-year long look into it, or something like that.
Something like that.
And basically said there's just no evidence whatsoever.
It confirming what we've known for a while. Yes, I played violent video games when I was a child. No, it didn't turn me into a degenerate. I'm fine.
I don't know, man.
I mean, I don't know. I do like Opate.
I was going to say Emoto Paradise.
I do like Emoto Paradise. Maybe I'm a degenerate, but it's like, I was 5 years old playing Alien vs. Predator for the Atari Jaguar. Yeah, that's a game where you run around shooting things with a shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing happened. I'm a reasonably well-adjusted individual. I don't go around shooting up schools. I don't go around doing any of this crazy stuff because I'm a normal person, and I don't have anything wrong with my brain. I just played some video games when I was a child, and still play some video games now. And what happens in there is fantasy, and what happens out here is reality. And I from a very young age, I knew the difference.
Yeah, I mean, that's something else that's kind of strange to me. When I was younger, I watched all kinds of things like Tom and Jerry or Roadrunner and Coyote and whatnot, and these are extremely violent shows.
Yeah.
But it's weird to me because I at never one point thought that, hey, I can drop an anvil on something and it wouldn't fucking kill it or injure it severely. I don't understand how there's a mentality that with other things that the more realistic it is, the more prone you are to do something in response to it.
Exactly.
Because I don't really think that's how any of this works. And of course, you were saying that, I got nothing wrong with my brain. Someone would probably point out that you're also not white.
Well, of course.
Because, only they are responsible for, mass shootings and things like that.
Naturally.
It's toxic or some masculinity or some shit.
And there could be a conversation had about that, because you look at all these young white men who go out and do atrocious things like school shootings, and you can look at that and say there's a pattern here, and there is certainly a problem. The problem isn't toxic masculinity. That's a cop-out answer.
Right. Yeah, it really is, because
there could be a conversation had about that, but these people don't want to have an actual conversation about it. They just want to point to a buzzword, because that makes everything easier.
Gun culture.
They don't want to have a real life actual talk about the stuff that causes these things. They want a soundbite. They want a little thing they could point to, a little pull quote saying, okay, this was caused by this, instead of looking at it and saying, okay, there are a number of factors. Let's look at this person. Let's look at this person's environment. Let's look at how society looks at the kind of person this person is, and let's determine why this happened. No, it's a buzzword. And I think that's one big problem I have with not just SJWs and whatnot, but just the kind of person who identifies with this sort of like point to this one thing as the cause of any one phenomena. It's like nothing is that simple in this world.
Not usually.
It's like when we were talking about the Gaijin Goomba and him saying, okay, the cause of why people feel the need to go on Love Plus and whatnot is the work culture. That's certainly a factor, but it's an oversimplification of the issue, a gross oversimplification of the issue.
Well, right. I mean, I certainly would factor that in.
And all these things are factors, but no one wants to actually put all the factors together and look at the root cause, because that's difficult, that's very muddy, and it is very, very murky, and you get to some very dark places when you do that.
Well, not only that, but
that's reality.
The same is true when you start looking at things in biology sometimes. Right. There are certain areas they don't want them to study. Or if they do study, they don't want them to publish certain types of findings.
Yep.
Because it's just uncomfortable.
It makes people uncomfortable.
I know this because, well, at school, that was a thing. The biology class, there were numerous studies that they would be passed around, and some people really had a problem with it, particularly in the sociology club.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever, and that's kind of strange to me, but I see where it's coming from, but I don't agree with it.
It's they want to play the easy mode version of looking at issues. If we can just find one soundbite that encompasses what we think the root cause is, then we're good. But in reality, everything is a lot murkier than that, and everything is a lot more difficult to pin down than that. And I feel like when we get to the reality of the situation, that sort of mentality cannot propagate itself. It cannot be allowed to propagate itself, because once we start looking for easy solutions to everything, nothing gets solved.
Right. And there's also a level basically of disregarding that in some cases there really is no answer.
Sometimes there is no right answer. Sometimes every avenue, someone gets hurt.
Pretty much.
That's something you have to deal with.
Right. Just like you said, in some instances, there are things that just can't be prevented or whatnot.
Yep.
They can't. It's kind of like what Carlin said when he said an airplane can't be completely safe.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, no, it can't. There's always the possibility that something will go belly up. Always.
Yep. When you have so many moving parts, and if one of them fails, the entire system fails. You can't have that. It's impossible, really, to have an entirely fail-proof system, and that's something that everyone has to accept and everyone has to live with. If we're gonna live in society without it devolving into Mad Max.
Right. But I do think this is something one of my relatives said. You can't protect from crazy. I mean, not completely.
Not complete. No, because you can't
predict. There's too many factors involved.
Exactly. It's unpredictable.
that the very idea of these people being predictable kind of goes against the crazy part of it.
Yep.
Um,
The most you can do is try and find it before something happens and treat it. But the stigma surrounding mental health in this society
is palpable.
It's sickening. It makes me sick, honestly.
Right, and it doesn't help that yeah, you're right. I mean, I believe it was during the Reagan administration that a lot of that was done. That a lot of the stigma actually did poke up, in the sense that a lot of these facilities were shut down.
Yep.
So I mean, I'm not saying that blame Reagan, but you can blame him for taking down the air traffic controllers and stuff and having them fired. I don't know if you know about that.
I'd heard about it.
Yeah. Basically like, well, we're going to throw a strike. You're all fired. That's basically what happened there. Anyway, to kind of bring this back to the gaming, it just seems like there's a mentality out there that I don't like this. It shouldn't exist, and I'm going to do everything in my power to create an atmosphere to where these things don't get made.
Yep. And at the end of the day, they can try, but gaming, in addition to art, gaming is also a market.
Very true. It's not purely something that like, we go to museums and look at it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would say anime is it has a lot in common with that too.
Oh, absolutely.
It has a market and all that. Why do these things exist? Because there are markets for them.
Because for the most part, the reason is because someone saw an opportunity to make money and decided to put a team together in order to make that happen. And a lot of the time they intersect. A lot of the time it's both a product and a work of art. But you can't just take away the product aspect, because that's intrinsic to the way these games are made. When you make a game, you have to factor in the monetization strategy. It has to be factored in. Otherwise, it's gonna be an afterthought, and you're not gonna make all that money.
Anime is the same way.
Yep.
Although, to be fair, I would say probably most of the money nowadays comes from merchandising.
Yeah, certainly.
More than anything else.
And to a certain extent, you got to factor that in too. You got to make sure those Daikimaka are ready.
Right. I can't even keep a straight face. Right. Well, and again, I think that's also why you see a lot of people that don't like capitalism, complaining about this stuff.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I'm gonna bet you money that if their stuff was the stuff that sold a whole lot, they wouldn't be complaining about capitalism.
Probably not. If they did, it would be in their Che shirt, which everything about that is fucking wrong. Wow. Like, and if you really admired the guy, way to disgrace his memory.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. I don't know. I mean, some people I'm sure just wear it because they think it's ironic.
Yeah, that's just as stupid.
Yeah. I would say so. But, then again, we're talking about a lot. All these people seem to at least come from money of some flavor.
Certainly.
So you do have to kind of wonder what possible hardships they've ever had.
They come from an environment where they haven't really struggled for anything. They haven't really faced real adversity. This is coming from a person. I don't think I've faced real adversity. Like, I haven't struggled in my life. but I know what the score is.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like I said before we were on air, the base. One of the things that always cracked me up was imagining them in like a line for something. Like I don't know, a line for a concert ticket or something.
For the new iPhone.
Yeah, exactly, and complaining that they have to stand in line, like it's some kind of a big deal. It's like, oh well, I shouldn't have to do this. Because I have money, and that just cracks me up. The struggle was real. I had to wait in line for hours to get this gadget, or as I said the one time that, well, the Volvo isn't working. I guess the Volvo has broken down. I guess I'll just have to take the other car.
Exactly.
The struggle is real. I don't know.
To me, I think like really, certainly the battle is and has been going in Gamergate's favor for the past 7 months.
As opposed to the people yelling, "You've lost."
Yeah.
Really?
As opposed to people yelling, Gamergate is lost, stop Gamergate 2014, Gamergate's never going to do anything.
A little late on that.
So, I mean, there have been a lot of ethics policy changes, a lot of stuff, and I mention one thing that bothers me, and then we'll kind of close off the segment. I've lost respect for some people who I had a whole lot of respect for during this whole thing.
Or do you want to just keep that to yourself, or no?
Adam Sessler in particular.
Oh yeah, he described basically people like us as being worse than chemical weapons dealers.
You know what? It wasn't even that. It was when he was up on stage with Jim Sterling. And he was talking about how people using the free speech excuse to justify harassment and talking smack in like online and whatnot. And he's saying, okay, yeah, you have every right to do it, and I have every right to figure out where your address is and put it out there. And when I saw that, I just hung with my mouth open for a minute. Like, did you really just say that? Did you really just advocate for finding people's addresses and putting them out there, like go get them for saying something on the internet? Is it really that serious, Adam? This guy used to be like. I used to say Adam Sessler is one of the most intelligent people in gaming right now. I don't think I can say that right now anymore because he actively advocates doxing.
Which I don't know anybody that does. I
don't know anybody who does who
isn't a complete douchebag.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't already a douche. Isn't already a reprehensible individual. From my perspective.
Right. And yeah, I saw that too. I didn't actually physically see it. I saw the quote and the picture being passed around. I'm guessing you actually saw it.
I saw it. Yeah, no, I saw the video from that.
I can just see you sitting there like, wow, I need to like TiVo that and rewind.
And like, this is the same on stage appearance in which Jim Sterling said, Anita Sarkeesian is not here to take your gains away.
What army? And then pan to a bunch of cheering idiots.
All the straight white men in the audience.
So much diversity, right? That's the other weird thing is the demographic of these people are almost uniformly straight white guys.
Oh, imagine that.
Which just I have to scratch my head. Just like, do they not notice that?
Like, imagine that the anti-gamer people they're all white. Imagine that there is not a single white dude on, say, the executive board of my college's gaming club. Not to say I'm the president, vice president's a woman, secretary and treasurer are both Hispanic. Not a single white dude. And people say minority voices are silenced when this dude's the president.
And let me guess, none of these are these people.
No, hell no. We're all bringing different socioeconomic backgrounds and whatnot. All very diverse, just like the gamer base has always been.
I mean,
my Halo 2 rival was a girl.
Mm-hmm.
My Halo 3 rival, my Halo Reach rival, my Halo 4 rival, he's Asian.
Mm-hmm.
The dude who always whoops my ass in Dead or Alive is black. As a matter of fact, both of them.
Gotcha. And again, I'll kind of plead ignorance here because most of the games I've played have always been console, and before the, kind of connection to the internet,
Yeah. But I mean, even outside of the internet,
I've been to arcades.
Wonderfully diverse. When we do like gaming events up at the college, all kinds of people from all walks of life come in and all play video games together, and we laugh and we shout stuff at each other and we laugh at the dude who got salty for being beat at Halo.
To be honest with you, again, this is something that I experience more from the arcades or just various tournaments like Street Fighter or Marvel vs. Capcom or something like that. The shit talking. I've always found it amusing.
I love it.
I find it hilarious. Like some of the shit. First off, some of the insults that have been conjured during these things have to be heard to be believed.
Like, because you get into it and you start saying stuff you wouldn't normally say, and it's hilarious when you're saying all this stuff, but your victory has not been secured yet. So there's still the possibility that you'll get absolutely embarrassed and be in hush mode for a bit. And
that's actually the funniest shit imaginable. When someone is being a loudmouth motherfucker and just gets their ass kicked.
Wrecked. Oh.
And then it's just one of those, one or two things happens in that regard. One of which is you get the awkward silent moment.
Yep.
Or two, they're still shit talking.
Exactly.
Which is, there's something funny about that.
In any case, we should probably end it off here.
Right. We ultimately did this kind of since the last episode we had a problem.
Yeah.
We had to do it over Skype, and we thought it would just be something fun way to kill the evening.
Yep. So that's the show.
Yep.
The email address is ntrradio@gmail.com. The website is she'slostcontrol.net/podcast. Check out, Taco Midnight's on hiatus. You don't have a website anymore. Because he's not here. Check out the other articles on she'slostcontrol.net. It just...
Let me pimp my own site.
And yeah, keep fighting Gamergate. We're winning. We have been winning. And the other people fundamentally can't win just based on who they are and what they do.
Yeah, I mean, so just realize we're kind of following the Charlie Sheen thing right now.
Winning.
Yes, and win there, win here, win there. By winning.
In any case, I'm Tommy Forster Anubis, still not your shield.
And I'm K-Odds. I'm just some random asshole.
And even though Gamergate goes another 7 months every time we say it, this is NTR Radio.